make you merciful towards the troubles of the world. Let your own silvery experience tone down our sanguine sorrows, for there is war in Notting Hill." The little toy shop keeper sprang up suddenly, slapping his fat hands like two fans on the counter. "War!" he cried. "Not really, sir? Is it true? Oh, what a joke! What a sight for sore eyes!" Wayne was almost taken aback by this outburst. "I am delighted," he stammered. "I had no notion." He sprang out of the way just in time to avoid Mr. Turnbull, who took a flying leap over the counter and dashed to the front of the shop. "You look here, sir," he said. "You just look here." He came back with two of the torn posters in his hand, which were flapping outside his shop. "Look at those, sir," he said, and flung them down on the counter. Wayne bent over them and read: "Last fighting. Reduction of the Central Dervish City. Remarkable," etc. On the other he read: "Last small republic annexed. Nicaraguan capital surrenders after months' fighting. Great slaughter." Wayne bent over them again, evidently puzzled. Then he looked at the dates. They were both dated in August, 15 years before. "Why do you keep these old things?" he said, startled entirely out of his absurd tact of mysticism. "Why do you hang them outside your shop?" "Because," said the other simply, "they are the records of the last war. You mentioned war just now. It happens to be my hobby." Wayne lifted his large blue eyes with an infantile wonder. "Come with me," said Turnbull shortly, and led him into a parlour at the back of the shop. In the centre of the parlour stood a large deal table. On it were set rows and rows of the tin and lead soldiers which were part of the shopkeeper's stock. The visitor would have thought nothing of it if it had not been for certain odd grouping of them, which did not seem either entirely commercial or entirely haphazard. "You are acquainted, no doubt," said Turnbull, turning his eyes upon Wayne. "You are acquainted, no doubt, with the arrangement of the American and Nicaraguan troops in the last battle?" And he waved his hand towards their table. "I am afraid not," said Wayne. "Ah, you were at that time occupied too much, perhaps, with the Dervish affair. You will find it in this corner." And he pointed to a part of the floor where there was another arrangement of children's soldiers grouped here and there. "You seem," said Wayne, "to be interested in military matters." "I am interested in nothing else," answered the toy shop keeper simply. Wayne appeared convulsed with a singular suppressed excitement. "In that case," he said, "I may approach you with an unusual degree of confidence touching the matter of the defence of Notting Hill. "Defence of Notting Hill? Yes, sir. This way, sir," said Turnbull, with a great perturbation. "Just step into this side room." And he led Wayne into another apartment, in which the table was entirely covered with an arrangement of children's bricks. A second glance at it told Wayne that the bricks were arranged in the form of a precise and perfect plan of Notting Hill. "Sir," said Turnbull impressively, "you have by a kind of accident hit upon the whole secret of my life. As a boy I grew up among the last wars of the world, when Nicaragua was taken and the Dervishes wiped out. And I adopted it as a hobby, sir, as you might adopt astronomy or bird stuffing. I had no ill will to any one, but I was interested in war as a science, as a game. And suddenly I was bowled out. The big powers of the world, having swallowed up all the small ones, came to that confounded agreement, and there was no more war. There was nothing more for me to do but to do what I do now, to read the old campaigns in dirty old newspapers, and to work them out with tin soldiers. One other thing had occurred to me. I thought it an amusing fancy to make a plan of how this district of ours ought to be defended if it were ever attacked. It seems to interest you too." "If it were ever attacked," repeated Wayne, awed in an almost mechanical enunciation. "Mr. Turnbull, it is attacked. Thank Heaven! I am bringing to at least one human being the news that is at the bottom, the only good news to any son of Adam. Your life has not been useless, your work has not been play. Now, when the hair is already grey on your head, Turnbull, you shall have your youth. God has not destroyed, he has only deferred it. Let us sit down here, and you shall explain to me this military map of Notting Hill, for you and I have to defend Notting Hill together." Mr. Turnbull looked at the other for a moment, then hesitated, and then sat down beside the bricks and the stranger. He did not rise again for 7 hours, when the dawn broke. The headquarters of Provost Adam Wayne and his commander-in-chief consisted of a small and somewhat unsuccessful milk shop at the corner of Pump Street. The blank white morning had only just begun to break over the blank London buildings, when Wayne and Turnbull were to be found seated in the cheerless and unswept shop. Wayne had something feminine in his character. He belonged to that class of persons who forget their meals when anything interesting is in hand. He had had nothing for 16 hours but hurried glasses of milk, and with a glass standing empty beside him, he was writing and sketching and dotting and crossing out with inconceivable rapidity with a pencil and a piece of paper. Turnbull was of that more masculine type in which a sense of responsibility increases the appetite, and with his sketch map beside him he was dealing strenuously with a pile of sandwiches in a paper packet and a tankard of ale from the tavern opposite, whose shutters had just been taken down. Neither of them spoke, and there was no sound in the living stillness except the scratching of Wayne's pencil and the squealing of an aimless-looking cat. At length Wayne broke the silence by saying, £17, 8 shillings and 9 pence. Turnbull nodded and put his head in the tankard. "That," said Wayne, "is not counting the £5 you took yesterday. What did you do with it?" "Ah, that is rather interesting," replied Turnbull, with his mouth full. "I used that £5 in a kindly and philanthropic act." Wayne was gazing with mystification in his queer and innocent eyes. "I used that £5," continued the other, "in giving no less than 40 little London boys rides in hansom cabs." "Are you insane?" asked the Provost. "It is only my light touch," returned Turnbull. "These hansom cab rides will raise the tone, my dear fellow, of our London youths, widen their horizon, brace their nerve system, make them acquainted with the various public monuments of our great city. Education, Wayne, education. How many excellent thinkers have pointed out that political reform is useless until we produce a cultured populace, so that 20 years hence, when these boys are grown up—" "Mad!" said Wayne, laying down his pencil, "and £5 gone." "You are in error," replied Turnbull. "You grave creatures can never be brought to understand how much quicker work really goes with the assistance of nonsense and good meals. Stripped of its decorative beauties, my statement was strictly accurate. Last night I gave 40 half-crowns to 40 little boys, and sent them all over London to take hansom cabs. I told them in every case to tell the cabman to bring them to this spot. In half an hour from now the declaration of war will be posted up. At the same time the cabs will have begun to come in, and you will have ordered out the guard. The little boys will drive up in state. We shall commandeer the horses for cavalry, use the cabs for barricade, and give the men the choice between serving in our ranks and detention in our basements and cellars. The little boys we can use as scouts. The main thing is that we start the war with an advantage unknown in all the other armies: horses. And now," he said, finishing his beer, "I will go and drill the troops." And he walked out of the milk shop, leaving the Provost staring. A minute or two afterwards the Provost laughed. He only laughed once or twice in his life, and then he did it in a queer way, as if it were an art he had not mastered. Even he saw something funny in the preposterous coup of the half-crowns and the little boys. He did not see the monstrous absurdity of the whole policy and the whole war. He enjoyed it seriously as a crusade. That is, he enjoyed it far more than any joke can be enjoyed. Turnbull enjoyed it partly as a joke, even more perhaps as a reversion from the things he hated: modernity and monotony and civilization. To break up the vast machinery of modern life and use the fragments as engines of war, to make the barricade of omnibuses and points of vantage of chimney pots, was to him a game worth infinite risk and trouble. He had that rational and deliberate preference